All right, good morning, people. Bob back once again. Gonna break down some Bitcoin, getting right down to it. Weekly chart in front of us here. Figured I'd start here. A couple different things. So, yesterday bulls kind of show up here at this 20,500-ish level, trying to protect that as essentially a double bottom. Going back to the week, like these 2 weeks basically closed out. Closed, then open, and then here, this one closed here, this one opened here, and now we've got double bottom on that. And then additionally beyond that, though, we've got bulls that are going to try and defend that level now to get an official, like true, kind of double bottom going. Now, here's going to be the big thing, and obviously we've talked about it. This is nothing new. 200 simples right here, 22.5-ish. We got to get past that level. Got to do it. It has to happen. And then 21.5 even really is the reason that we keep getting rejected there, is because that's where the 50 simple on the monthly chart is. So we've got a lot going against us. But I kind of wanted to just point out a few things here. And kind of going back to taking a look at the historical volume. Here we had a situation where we had a massive spike in volume, and it did take time, but it did eventually break out of there, back here in this prior capitulation event right here. Huge volume, kind of dwindled for a bit, and then, eventually it did break up out of there. Here, we've got huge volume once again. This is really good volume. This is solid. So, and then we've got a MACD that is starting to show that the histogram's starting to show some upside, but the problem being that right now, the MACD kind of indicator line is essentially fallen out of the bottom of this falling wedge. Will that end up meaning anything? We'll find out. I mean, that could just mean that instead of a falling wedge, this really is more of a falling channel. I could readjust the line, and you'd be able to see, okay, yeah, it's more of a channel than it is a wedge. Sort of, we could even go as far as to say maybe a bull flag of sorts, because we had all this bullish action that led to this flag. So it really just, we could look at this one of a few different ways, but let's get that readjusted here. I'm going to keep it that way for now. But yeah, we've got some different things going. And again, nothing's really changed in terms of what we're looking for, right? So don't, I'm just showing you this to get the day started. But, again, the histogram is showing some signs that it could start to make some positive strides here. And, kind of look over here where we were when we fell into this kind of bear flag here. We did eventually turn, where this started to lose downside pressures, and we did get some upside movement before eventually just, capitulating down. But, again, and then over here, same concept. I mean, it was, really once it started to gain traction back the other way, it started flying. So that's really what we got to be on the lookout for, is just, hey, if this level holds up or if it comes down and double bottoms here, we got to see some extreme pressure back to the upside and just come screaming up above this level. Got to see it. It's a must. We need this. So let's go ahead and we'll zoom in on the daily. Now the daily actually, it's always kind of interesting because a lot of times you get overnight positive price action in this market for whatever reason. So last night, this one closes out at 2,705. Then during the day, though, it hit about 20,500. Came back down overnight, retested at 20,500. It came up here. It has now tested the upper boundaries, and it's just kind of hovering there. It's right at about 21,000 right now. We'll zoom in on the shorter term time frames, but again, like I said, we could be in a position where we are in fact making our way back down a little bit. Really, before I would give you any kind of indication that this is all, any of this will change, we need to be able to see a green candle close out on the daily chart, okay? Because up until then, that would suggest that this downtrend is still happening, right? You get red candle, red candle. If this one doesn't close green today, if it closes red, you must assume, or I guess more specifically, if it can't break above here, you must assume that the next candle will likely be red. We'll see. We talked about the RSI yesterday. We had this trend line from what we'll call the breakout of the rising wedge. Now it has back tested that level. So maybe we do come up here, and who knows, maybe that actually means we get a test higher than we would expect to get out of this. But it could, turn right into a bull trap, right? We've seen that plenty of times. This line that you see here, this the thicker white line, that is still the parabola, the downside parabola that we've really followed for quite some time, right? Like we've been within this downside parabola for quite some time now, and it's still there. Is it perfectly aligned with the price action right now? Tough to say, because it's this thing's been going on now for 5 months. So it's kind of tough to say if it's really in perfect alignment on a daily chart when we're talking 150 days or so worth of price action. But nonetheless, it is still within there as of this moment and within this chart. So we'll see. Again, big thing's going to be we just need to start seeing more upside push out of Bitcoin here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 4-hour chart real briefly. And you can already see here that just within the 8 o'clock hour, this is doing exactly what I would think that it would. Matt and I were talking yesterday, and I said, 21.2 is probably the top side that Bitcoin has in it right now. And I was talking about that over here when it was, down here in this 20,600 range. And I said 25.50 would probably be the bottom. And there you go, 25.50 and 21.2. Now, again, question becomes, what is it going to do out of here? Well, I could paint a few different pictures here that might actually present something reasonable. Now, we've got this kind of falling channel on the 4-hour, which lines up pretty well with what we're seeing here, right? That's a 4-hour falling channel. Well, this would show that it actually kind of broke out of this downtrend, and then we've got a stochastic RSI that actually looks like it could break to the upside. We've got a MACD indicator line that's above the 0 point, and we've got a 4-hour histogram that looks like it could start to curl positive. There are some things that would suggest that this could move to the upside. I think that if I'm looking at this logically speaking, maybe it could make a push to 21.4 or even 21.5. I just don't know 100% that this was truly a breakout. It could be. I mean, you can see here that there was a real solid volume spike in this particular time period, which would have been kind of the breakout of that trend line. Now we got a back test. Now the question is, does it push up higher? We'll see. If it can push up out of there, then measured move, we're looking, let's say it does break out right there. Almost 22,000 is our number then. If it can get to that point, well, then we've got to reassess our pattern more than likely. And maybe we end up with something similar to, say, like this right here, where we've got an upper and a lower boundary to something that looks like this, that would kind of line up as a fairly logical conclusion there, based on this particular measured move. I think at least some feasibility that could play out. Just don't know for sure at this point. I do have my hourly chart here though, so let's zoom in on that one and see what's going on there. And here, and all these charts are going to be slightly different just because they are slightly different. They're on different exchanges and everything. But right here, the stochastic RSI is curling down. The hourly RSI is below this kind of bullish, what I have labeled as my bullish control zone. But we do have a situation where the 21 simple is coming up under the 200 here. That could potentially push. That could give it the push it needs to get through all of these moving averages, which, to a large extent is how I assess the 21.2 as the high. I mean, you look here and all these hourly moving averages are bunched up. it's going to be tough to get through those unless it gets, something of a mega pump, which we could be due for here pretty quickly. I mean, this 20,900-ish, 20,880, it seems like a fairly important level. We lost it yesterday. Certainly the bulls could have just kind of rolled over here, but they did not. They showed up here, which to that point, I think it's worth at least pointing out two things. One, on the weekly chart, 20,500 was the bottom, which we talked about from last week. Thus, the bulls try to defend it as a double bottom. But also, other thing we've got there is that it was essentially a back test of the breakout from this downtrend line here. Now, what's interesting about this, to me at least, is the fact that we've seen a lot of these just dump right back into the patterns here recently. Even kind of going back over here, we've seen a ton of that, right? Where it would break out of something and then just rip right back in. Like here we had this real nice uptrend, and then we just got slaughtered, tried to pull back into it, and just multiple times got rejected by that pattern. So again, I think it's at least a positive that we've got a breakout, a back test that didn't just roll over and die yet. So that's a positive. But again, we've got to get some more push here soon today, or at that point, I will start looking for a return to 20,600, maybe a pull down to 20,300 or so, or even as far down as 20,000, almost to the penny. And that would be a fairly reasonable and logical place for it to land if it's not going to break out here. However, the big thing I'd say in relation to this is that this kind of has a nice falling, broadening wedge. And again, it kind of double bottomed in here with some bullish divergence. You can see on the hourly, we got a double bottom bullish divergence. So that's this move right here. And I just, it's tough to say if it actually has any gas left in the tank. But it could just come right back down and then pop right out of there. And again, we get our measured move from here. Still takes us up over the level that we need to get over in order to maybe start seeing some upside pushes here. It does kind of get us to the same height as this prior high. So the question would be, we've tested that 21.7 range now twice, basically, here and here. Would this be the one that we can finally hold on to? We come up here, put a retest in at 21.560, and then boom, kind of a takeoff there. Hopefully that's the case. I mean, that would be a wonderful thing. That would be something we could definitely look forward to. And again, as of right now, based on this chart, this was the bulls holding the 236 fib level from this move here, the reverse fib on this, which we already talked about the fact that they held the 382. That's as bullish as you can get. Typically, and I called for it the other day. I thought it would roll over right here. It didn't. It still hasn't technically rolled over here. So is it feasible that we are, in fact, beginning some sort of like reasonable reversal that might actually lead to some positive price action? I am not doubting it at this point. And again, let's assume that this line now is something that's going to hold up fairly well. Then what we could see here is that we should get a move up to here. Now this is, again, this is a rising pattern. So eventually they break down, but again, for right now, this is there's some positive things here. I won't even necessarily mind if it rolls back down over here. But obviously we don't want to lose levels. But hey, if we come down here, then we assume that this is resistance until it proves otherwise. If it comes down here, recovers this level, flips it back to support, boom, you're up to this level, and then a lot of things could happen from here. So this is probably what I'll be looking out for most specifically at the moment. And then also, the other thing is too, sometimes these little patterns here, when coins really start to get moving, a lot of times you can get kind of this little rounding pattern, and then you might get a big spike. And this thing could actually, it's feasible too that this thing could lead to some sort of, longer duration kind of a parabola here. This could very well be forming into one right now. So, if we do come up here, I mean, without a question, you want to be long at this point because this thing should take up off out of here, assuming that in fact that is what we are getting, which now that I'm actually sitting here looking pretty extensively at it, I think is a fairly logical conclusion. And then all of a sudden we're talking $24,000 Bitcoin again. Is it going to happen today? I doubt that highly, but I mean, if we look at this, we're running into July. That's another thing too. Keep in mind that holiday weekends tend to be fairly exceptional for positive price action for Bitcoin, and we do in fact have a holiday weekend approaching, right? So I think that there would be some strong indications here based on what I'm seeing to suggest that we could very well have a very interesting weekend. And then like usual, it'll probably fall apart on Tuesday. But if we can go from say 21,000 to 24,000 this weekend, I don't think anybody's going to complain, even if the market then falls back to like 21,000 thereafter. Just because again, this would present some proof that we actually do have something that is finally changing here on Bitcoin, and then we could point to this situation right here where again on the daily you got that bullish engulfing candle, and in fact it has set us up for success here. Just tough to say for sure what this pattern is going to be. I mean, I can make a few judgments as to what we're looking at here, but right now it's tough to confirm. That all being stated, let's go ahead. Let's zoom in on the shortest term time frames here. Let's get our charts restored back to the way we want them here. That'll be our 4-hour chart. That's a good 1 hour there. All right, and then getting in on the action here. Let's go ahead, clean this up a little bit so you can actually see what's going on. All right, so as far as it goes, the comparing this to the other charts that we're looking at, I'm going to go ahead and move this out just a bit because I think it's worth just kind of adjusting that. It's clear that it's still following a downward trend. Now again, I'm looking for it to come back down, and I think it's time to move this line, even though that clearly it held up as far as a retest here. So we'll keep that line for the moment. But yeah, I mean, you could just look at it and kind of see. I mean, you could even make the argument that this is kind of rounding out right here. So maybe we even come back down. Maybe we don't go below 20,700 even, and this thing just blasts off. Maybe it doesn't come down below 20,890 and then just takes off. It's fairly difficult to say for sure right now. The hourly RSI doesn't look great. Right, you got the RSI pointed basically straight down. So I think we are going to see some more downside here. If we lose this level, though, absolutely expect that we're coming back down at least to here, if not here, and if not even possibly, again, down into this range. But again, I'll drop one more line on there, and I think this will kind of help us to identify maybe a more pure bottom. I mean, so let's assume it comes back down all the way to here. That gets us right at that $20,000 level we were talking about. That also matches up with the line of the downtrend. So that's really going to be the number I'm looking for right now as far as like a primary downside target. If it loses that, then let's assume we're heading back to 17 or 18,000 or whatever. But in the meantime, for right now, again, I'll be looking at about 20,000. Maybe this 20,400 as a potential downside target for the time being. And then upside, again, I think it's feasible, maybe not necessarily likely, but feasible that we actually do see a push up here today. If we break this trend line, then obviously you'd go long, and you could long that all the way up to 21.7 or so. And then look for, a supportive bounce, maybe 21.5-ish. So there are a couple different ways we could look at this today, and we'll see which one it actually plays out. Man, we appreciate you guys, and I hope everybody enjoys this every morning. I know I enjoy filming it, recording it, however you want to put it. Look forward to catching up again soon.